Hey guys, today we are going to study about null pointer exception, right? First of all, what is null pointer exception? In Java, null pointer exceptions are the runtime exception that occurs suppose you are trying to modify or access an object, but that object has not been initialized. What's the mean that object is not pointing to anything, but still you are trying to modify or you want to perform any operation on that object. Let's discuss using an example. Suppose I have a class student. I have a class student. I have a class student, and I am having one field there, marks. Right? I have a student class and having field marks, and here is I created one main method. I'm creating one main method. Public static void main. Right? String array of argument. In that main method I am creating an object of student and try to create an object of student, right? But I initialize null to that student, right? And I try to modify the marks of that student, right? Suppose that 85. What will happen here? We will get an exception. We will get an exception called as null pointer exception. The question is why? What is the meaning of that line? The meaning of that line is you are trying to create an object, but you are initializing null means that a reference s is pointing to nothing. Null means nothing. What's the meaning of that line is you didn't create an object, but you are trying to modify an object. How JVM will modify an object, but how JVM will modify an object, but you are not creating an object. We don't create any object, but you are doing some operation on that object, right? Because of that reason we will get an exception called as null pointer exception. We can take one more example. Suppose I have a class test, right? In that test class there is a main method, public static void main method. In that main method I am trying to create a string object, right? String s. Again I am initializing null, right? And I want to print the length of that string, right? I want to print the length of that string. What will happen here? We will get here null pointer exception. Why? Because here we didn't create an object, but still we are trying to know the length of that object, right? JVM will give you the length because you didn't create an object. JVM don't have object. Then how can JVM will give you the length of that object, right? Because of that reason we will get null pointer exception. Then what is null pointer exception? An exception which is an runtime exception, but we are trying to perform any operation on an object, but that object is having null reference. But you are trying to perform any operation, you are trying to modify an object. In that case we will get null pointer exception. That's all about the null pointer exception. Thank you for watching.